being spun by some as a win for President Trump. The latest CNN SSRS poll shows an unchanged opinion on public support of impeachment and removal from office. This stagnant result comes within the time frame of the first round of public impeachment hearings. However, half of Americans still want the president impeached and removed from office. Those numbers come in stark contrast with President Clinton's impeachment numbers. The peak of public support for impeaching and removing Clinton from office in 1998 only rose to 29%. That's according to CNN's polling. Joe, what do you think of those numbers? The White House seems to be happy with them. So we're starting an important week in the impeachment proceedings. I think it's very important to look at the Republicans' arguments, and we covered the first argument, the first defense, their retort to 2 weeks of incredibly compelling testimony from American patriots, people who have dedicated their lives to work quietly to defend this country and promote this country's values across the globe. Their response to that is parroting Vladimir Putin's propaganda talking points that Donald Trump's 17 intel agencies warned them against doing. And the second argument is, Steve Kornacki, that 50% of Americans want Donald Trump removed from office. So like a majority of Americans want Donald Trump removed from office. 21% higher number than Bill Clinton at any point Bill Clinton had during that impeachment investigation and vote. You go inside the numbers, it's striking just how high those numbers are, even compared to Richard Nixon for the first year and a half of Watergate.
Yeah, clearly the difference between now and Bill Clinton, there was a national consensus when it came to Bill Clinton 2 decades ago. The national consensus was folks did not want him impeached and removed. It was clear in the polling from beginning to the end. Also a difference, you mentioned Nixon there, I think a difference between the polling we have now with Donald Trump and Richard Nixon is the polling did change over time significantly with Richard Nixon. By the end of that process, July, August, early August 1974, you could find polling that showed 2/3 majority supporting impeaching and removing Richard Nixon. What strikes me about the numbers with Trump right now, you put the CNN one up there, if you average together all the different polls that are out there right now on this question of impeaching and removing Trump, it's 48% support impeaching and removing, 46% oppose. And the 2016 popular vote was 48% Hillary Clinton, 46% Donald Trump. And so it really feels like the difference between now and Bill Clinton, the difference between now and Richard Nixon is that very basic, very deep, polarized divide in this country that defined the 2016 campaign really has endured for 3 years, and it's rearing its head now in this impeachment polling.
Well, Susan Page, though, you talk about damning with faint praise. Trumpists that are going out trying to defend the president over the past week or so have been saying the impeachment inquiry has been a debacle for Nancy Pelosi. It has backfired against Nancy Pelosi. Oh, look at these polls. OK, let's look at the polls. 1 out of 2 Americans believe that what Donald Trump did regarding Ukraine requires him to be impeached and removed from office. Those numbers are extraordinarily high in this constitutional republic. And Republicans are so desperate, they're actually having to take that as a victory.
Well, you know, it's clear that this is an extraordinary number. You're right. Half of Americans want to impeach and remove the president. But it's also clear that it hasn't moved. And if you want to look at why it is unlikely that Democrats will get a single Republican vote in the House in favor of impeachment, and why we may or may not see any Republicans in the Senate voting to remove the president from office after an impeachment trial, it reflects that public opinion they're looking at. If you were going to move opinion among congressional Republicans, you need to move it in their districts, in the place where it would matter most to them. So it just reflects a political system that is now, it seems to be set in concrete. What could happen that would shake this, either convince Democrats that the president shouldn't be impeached or convince Republicans that he should. It is hard to imagine what that would be.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.